somebody who likes your running back tandem more than you do, and that is Belichick. He could not say enough about AJ and Aaron. Do you think that you've got a group that, I don't want to say scares guys like Belichick, but you know what I mean? Like it really does
Well, I think,
stress those guys?
yeah, well, I think it's because of, how we use them, and how many touches that they get, in the game. And then obviously they're both capable in their own ways of making plays. So I think that's the biggest thing, is just because of like the different ways that we'll use them in the pass game, run game. I mean, the heck, even AJ's out lead blocking, sometimes now. So I think it probably has more to do with that, just their usage.
Are you guys as a staff, like in the meeting room, like mad scientists trying to come up with different ways to put them to use? Like, is that still an ongoing process from week to week of finding different ways to utilize them?
Yeah, I think without question, I think anytime that when you look at guys as some of your best players and some of the guys that'll help produce, you try to find ways, for them to get the ball if they can handle it. And I think fortunately we got two guys that can handle a lot of the things that we're asking them to do.
And when you've got two guys that play a lot for you like these guys do, is it better that they do different things, or do you have two guys that do the same kind of thing? Is that different?
It really, it's better if they can do, different things. But I think that the fact that they can do the same thing kind of helps us too, because you'll see, you saw us run bubble routes and hand the ball off to AJ. And then you saw us do bubble routes with AJ and hand the ball off to Aaron. So from that standpoint, we try to keep them both kind of interchangeable in the things that we ask them to do. Like if one guy can do something, we want the other guy to be able to do it also, so that way defenses just can't say, well, when this guy's in the game, here's what he's going to do, or when they're both in the game, expect this guy to do this and that one to do. We mix that part of it up, and you can't do that unless you got guys you can rely on.
How hard is it for your guys on some of these plays where they don't really know for sure whether Aaron's going to give them the ball or not? Is there a science to that? No,
I guess the biggest thing I always tell them is run the play like you expect to get the ball, whether it's a fake or RPO, wherever it might be. In your mindset is the ball's coming to you. And it's the same thing if they're doing something in the pass game. If they're not, they could be number 4 in the progression, but in your mind, the ball's coming to you. Because with Aaron, it just might, just the way based on how you decipher the defense.
Ben, could you guys do what you're doing with two backs if they didn't have the personalities that these guys have? Like, maybe a little bit more unselfish. Like if you had two guys that, or one guy that was maybe a little bit more, I need the ball more, would it be harder to do?
I think it could be, but I think as long as you're able, to spread the ball around. Because even if you look at, I want to say I think the Bears game, Aaron obviously had more yards, but AJ had more carries. So I think even if you have a guy that's, because it's a good trait in a way to have a guy that has a selfish tendency of I want to get the ball because I want to help my team. I want to get out there and do my thing. But the way our offense is structured, 1 week it could be one guy that gets the most touches, and the other week the other guy. And sometimes that's enough to satisfy a guy that's all about me.
In space, obviously we've seen for years what Aaron can do, but what makes him as dynamic as he is, like in traffic, as far as how slippery he is and the amount of tackles he's?
I think it's because he's very efficient as a runner. He doesn't really break down very often, like sometimes you'll see other backs do. He's got good anticipation. He understands how to absorb hits, and then we always talk about accelerating on contact. He does a good job of that, and then you combine that just with his pad level. You see, some of those runs he had, he was bottled up, pretty good, but he was able to squirt through there just by keeping his feet moving. That's something that we always talk about.
Is it an adjustment for those guys with some of the pulling that you guys have been doing more of, it seems like this year? Are those plays that you rep hundreds of times in training camp, or is that an adjustment? Because they've been running a lot inside and outside zone for years.
Right, yeah, and I think it was something that we featured a lot more just in training camp. It's like anything else, once you practice it, you start to learn the intangibles of how to run it. So they've gotten better with it. And I think it's, you combine that just with our outside zone schemes. I mean, it really works, in their benefit, because you get a chance to cut the defense off, and they have such, good instincts that, they can read and react to the linemen when they're pulling around. So it kind of plays up to them.
Is it a different skill set? I mean, different footwork? They always say it's, 1 foot and go.
Yeah, from that standpoint it is, because when you start talking about the outside zone play, that is pretty much a press, put your foot down, boom, get upfield. This one, it's more of like once you take your initial read and you have the guys out in front of you, you're not really, we read the initial part of the scheme, then when the guys that are pulling around, I say you have to react off of those guys. So it's not as much reading as it is reacting to how the linemen are fitting up on the guys that they're blocking.
Speaking of adjustments, and obviously this is a great thing to be able to put the two of those guys on the field at the same time, but have you had to adjust in terms of how you try to manage their workloads? I mean, it's a lot easier when you say, okay, this guy's got this series, or do you have to be a little more judicious?
Are you talking about in practice or in the games?
No, in the games, when you're playing them together in tandem more than you ever have before, right?
Right.
Does that create any sort of little adjustments you have to make in how you spread the carries and the workload?
Yeah, I mean, I think one thing, like if you watch this series, we had a lot of, in the beginning of that Tampa game, you saw we had a lot of long drives, a lot of plays. And if you look at within those drives, it was never one guy that was in there that entire drive. So I always try to gauge, and monitor a guy, even if he's just playing 3 or 4 plays within a drive, and say, well, let me get the other guy in there, keep him fresh. Like the other guy may go in there for two reps, and then I'll get the other guy back in once he's out. So I try to, and that's the beauty of it, when you got, 2 guys that you can rely on being productive, is they're interchangeable within the series. So what it does, it helps to keep them fresh. And then I think that can give us a chance late in the game to, try to wear the defense down, because now they're not worn out.
Did you and AJ both break your fingers, or is that contagious?
Well, I did something that I shouldn't have done, and my wife's giving me basically giving me hell about, saying I'm too old to do it. So, it was something, I was trying to be an athlete. I put it like that, and start acting my age more, I guess.
Ben, AJ was telling me a couple weeks ago that he's been trying to get some tape of you from coaches he knows at Maine.
Right.
Has that worked? And did you guys have a friendly wager? I know BC beat Maine a couple weeks ago.
You know what? It's funny because I didn't realize that we were playing BC until I saw it on Saturday. So I think at the time we were only down by 10. So I took a photo of the score on TV, and I sent it to him. Told him how we were about to roll back, and then at the end of the game he texted me back, busting my chops about it. But if I'd have known that earlier, we would have had something on it. We might have had to go point spread or something on it. I didn't think we would beat them head up. So.